Welcome back, everybody, to the Flatirons Tuning Podcast. We're going to try something new with this episode. This is the first of the "Hey, what's your problem?" episodes. DP and I both found out that we were fans of Car Talk, the Car Talk podcast. Well, it wasn't a podcast; I guess it was a radio show.
Back in the old days, when we were young.
Yep,
Tom and radio.
Yeah, Tom and Ray Magliozzi, Click and Clack, the Tappet Brothers, and it was a call-in show where people would call in with problems of the cars that they were having with their car, and they would try and help diagnose it or give them some ideas over the phone. And they were, basically automotive geniuses that had a shop for years and years. And kind of in finding that out, we got to talking again, and it's like we've both been parts guys for a long time, and when you've been behind the parts counter for a long time and people find out that you've done some things or have some experience with diagnosing problems, all of a sudden you start to get some questions. And it's like you get to play Car Talk, from the parts counter. It's kind of a normal thing. It happens to us at this point, pretty much on a daily basis. And so that's the inspiration for kind of kicking this off and trying to, help you guys out. Answer some of your questions, maybe give you some insight into some of the problems that we've worked through in the past, that sort of thing. So the key here is that this podcast, this version of the podcast is dependent on you. We need your questions to give us the things to talk about. So we've got a few here, but if you like what we're doing with this podcast, if you think this is fun, or if you just want some help or want to see what we can do, leave your questions in the comments below. You can always reach out to us through our email if you want to attach pictures or something like that through the contact us link on the Flatirons Tuning website. Or you can open a ticket or a live chat with us and send us your question and pictures and stuff like that, and we can put that together and hopefully use it for the podcast. So hopefully we're going to kick it off and hopefully it goes well. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
The one caveat that I'll say at the beginning is just keep in mind we are just two parts guys that have spent maybe a few too many years behind the parts counter. There's no substitute for a professional mechanic getting a hands-on diagnosis of your car. So we're going to do the best we can. We're going to have fun with it. But if even our help, if we can't even help you out, the next, maybe the last best option is to actually have a professional mechanic go through your car. So
Absolutely.
All right, so DP, where should we start? What do you want with the first question?
Let's start with anonymous being.
Okay. This is a question I think from YouTube.
I think so.
Yeah, go ahead and read it off.
Anonymous being says, "Hey, I have a 2016 WRX recently installed in IAG Stage 2 short block, very nice. Kelford Stage 2 EZ cams, Boost Lab TDO6 54X Turbo, Cobb 3-port electronic boost control solenoid, map intake, Grimspeed charge pipe, map top mount, Grimspeed Cat J pipe, NVIDIA R400 catback." Quite a mod list.
Yeah,
that's got to be
a lot
of
of modifications.
It's gonna be a fun car to drive, right?
Yeah.
Until I've been trying to get to the 1,000-mile break-in on the short block before getting it tuned, and I've been getting a P0420 check engine light. Dun dun dun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Replace the map, spark plugs O2 sensor, and can't seem to identify what's causing the CEL. Any direction I should be looking?
All right, so maybe let's start with the error code. What is a P0420 error code?
P0420 error code is catalyst. I can't say that word to save my soul. It's the beard. It just brings my jaw down. A catalyst out of efficiency range.
Right. So the first thing that comes to mind with this is that we are in a new tuning era. Things have changed, and this is a very common check engine light, but this is one of the common ones that tuners would just basically disable, because what you have on a car is two O2 sensors. There's a front O2 sensor, which is in the header, and then you have the rear O2 sensor. And the front O2 sensor is the one that the computer's looking at. It's measuring the exhaust gas right as it comes out of the engine. So this is what the computer's looking at for this engine running rich, lean, what were the AFRs, and that's the one that the computer uses to make fueling changes. Now, the rear O2 sensor, that one sits after the catalytic converters. And what it's doing is it's comparing what it's reading to the front. Because if the catalytic converters are in between the two and they're doing their job, then the exhaust should be a lot cleaner after the exhaust has gone through the cats. And that's what the rear O2 sensor is looking for. It's comparing its reading, and it should be a lot different than the front O2 sensor reading. If it's too similar, which would imply that the catalytic converters are not doing their job, not scrubbing the exhaust enough, that's what will trip this check engine light. So the key thing here is that he's got a J-pipe with a high flow cat.
Mm-hmm.
And the factory J-pipe has 2 catalysts in it. This J-pipe has just 1. And so though the high flow cats can work pretty well, they don't work as well as 2 OEM catalytic converters. And so if that rear O2 sensor reading is basically too close to the front, then that is what trips this check engine light. Yeah. And with the new tuning environment that we have, now this is something that is kind of set in stone there. It's not something that can be ignored. And so that actually is most likely why this check engine light is coming on.
Yeah, I agree. I do wonder though if there's not a baseline tune on here, if we've got like just excess fuel trims, and maybe it'll actually do it.
Right.
Like once you get to that 1,000-mile break-in, or just get a quick break-in tune that can like adjust those trims so you don't burn out a new high flow cat. Right.
Okay. So what you're saying? So this is a new engine with a new tune on it, maybe a break-in tune, or it is a break-in tune. So maybe the tuner's running extra rich just to be on the safe side for heat management.
Yeah.
But running extra rich in that way, then it's just sending so much unburned fuel through the cats that they can't keep up. It's the can. Maybe that's what's triggering the rear O2 sensor.
It's possible, but then there is the classic, more is more. So
yeah.
Factory having 2 cats.
Sure.
More is better in this case, but those high efficiency cats have come a long way. So it's
true.
really tough to say, but it's just another thing, an avenue I was thinking of.
So what do you think? What if this was your car and you had the same problem, what would your first diagnostic step be?
First thing I'd do is I'd pull that Grimspeed J-pipe, cry a little, and put in my factory J-pipe and drive it for a couple of key cycles just to see if maybe it clears itself up.
Sure. Yeah, you put the stock cats back in, check engine light goes away, then now having the 2 factory cats, that's doing a better job. Check engine light goes away. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It might also be worth getting a hold of the tuner and just say, hey, this break-in map, did you make it like super rich? Just err on the side of caution there for fueling trims, and maybe see if they can resend the break-in map with maybe just a little bit less aggressive fueling. See if that maybe has the check engine light turn off or something like that.
Yeah, so it couldn't hurt for sure.
Yeah, the biggest thing to keep in mind, and why we wanted to bring this question in for this first episode is like this is a new normal for the tuning world. Check engine lights, especially things like this check engine light, which were really kind of more not critical. Like it didn't mean that there was an imminent issue with the engine that needed immediate attention. This is just something that's kind of like would be on in the background more than anything. Well, now these kind of check engine lights that were typically ignored, well, you can't ignore them anymore. Yeah. And it's worth keeping that in mind as you're planning out your build, planning out mod list, whatever. That if you have to be able to keep the car so that you can get through emissions with no check engine lights, well, that's going to have a little bit of an impact now on that mod list.
Yeah, definitely. You may have to go with a slightly smaller turbo and things like that, but maybe you can do some other things, brake suspension, and get that same zhuzh you want.
Right. Yeah, save weights. Yep. Go get there a different way.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. What's the next question here?
Next one up is from Patrick Lodi. I hope I'm saying your name right. I'm sorry if I'm not. I just go with what I've got. But 2006 WRX on a very light throttle. The car goes back and forth between normal and lean AFR. Oh man. When this happens, the car falls on its face. And if you back out of it and then go wide open throttle, there's no issues and it pulls great. Got a cob cold air intake, parent turbo inlet, STI top mount, Grimspeed external wastegate up pipe, tile 40mm external wastegate, cob catted down pipe, Grimspeed bypass valve, air pump delete, TGV deletes, and a homemade grounding kit. Issue started with my old tune. Found a new tuner and explained what was going on. He retuned it and the issue went away. For now. A couple months later, issue started coming back.
Interesting.
That is a very interesting one.
So let's see. So basically, the core issue here is that it sounds like partial throttle, AFRs become irregular, and the car stutters. But if you go wide open throttle, no issues. Or if you back out, no issues.
Yeah,
That's a tricky one.
that is. There's so many things, you know, and I
Where
kind of
where would you start? What do you think?
well, I really wish I knew if we had some more of a breadcrumb trail, like some CELs to go on.
Yep.
But I mean, I'd think, I'd start looking at, like, was my floor mat stuck? Was my throttle, my TPS sweep not getting all the way there?
Mm-hmm.
There's not a mention of like boost control.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe we've got an issue there where it's, too much too fast, or it's actuating or bypassing at just the wrong place.
Yeah. I mean, with the AFRs moving, with the AFRs becoming inconsistent, you got to wonder if, like under that condition where you're really starting to build boost, is there maybe a vacuum leak present where something is getting thrown haywire, and the ECU is just not able to compensate, possibly?
Yeah, I mean, that'd be something you could do with a check with a smoke tester.
Yeah, I think doing a smoke test on a car, in any of these turbo cars, a smoke test is a great diagnostic tool, great place to start, because if you're going to start looking for anything that could be related to a vacuum leak in any way, to know whether or not you've got a vacuum leak, and if you do, fix it before you start diagnosing any further, that is huge. So that would definitely be a good starting spot. The other thing that's really interesting here is that the tuner, a new tuner, went in, reworked the tune some way, somehow, and fixed the issue for some period of time, but then it came back.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm probably in the same boat you are. Go ahead.
Well, so I was going to say that, one, like you said, any kind of check engine lights. So maybe there are check engine lights that didn't get mentioned, but if ever you have check engine lights, I mean, this is like your breadcrumbs of a starting a path, of a place to look. Give you a hint as far as what some of the error might be. So if there are any check engine lights, be really curious to know what they are. But if the tuner changed something and that fixed it for a period, I'd be really curious what the tuner changed.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe as a starting point, reach out to the tuner and try and find out, like, hey, what did you see in the map or that the car was doing that you weren't happy with that you changed, and maybe even bring the car back to him to have another baseline done to see, with the tune that he made that fixed it for a time, like, is it now, has something else now changed? Like, was it a vacuum leak that has now gotten worse? Something along those lines.
Yeah.
Just try and help diagnose the issue.
Yeah, I just actually had a thought that I was like, what if he had a vacuum leak in the previous tuner and then tuner fixed it?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he went in and found that like one of the little ports was not on, and just went,
oh yeah,
fixed it, and now he's compensated for an issue that's not there anymore, and so maybe there's where the trouble lies.
Yeah, that's one of the hard things with vacuum hoses. Like they're a lot of them are really small. They're rubber hoses. They get old and it gets hot underneath that engine bay. They can turn almost like plastic, and they can crack. Sometimes you'll have like a really minor vacuum leak, but then like as the engine is moving and rocking around, then all of a sudden that crack opens up, and so like you have all sorts of weird problems with vacuum leaks.
Yeah.
Again, back to a smoke test.
Yeah, right.
Hopefully you'd see it or get at least a hint.
I mean, worst case though, you plug in the smoke tester and it's just like Armageddon in there. It's like, uh-oh.
Hey, but then you know where to look.
Yeah,
that always helps.
You got a starting point.
Smoke tests. I mean, it can be frustrating, but you really do need it.
Mm-hmm.
The one other thing that you maybe think of this when you said boost control. A long time ago, I actually had a problem that was very similar to this in my car. Maybe similar, where so it was only going uphill. So if I was going up a hill, an incline, and I was at partial throttle, the car would just start to buck, like definitely noticeably.
Okay.
I don't have an AFR gauge, so I don't know if the AFRs were related, but it was definitely noticeable. And it was the same kind of situation where if I would back out of the throttle, problem went away. If I went wide open throttle, it would go away. It was just at that partial throttle. And what I ended up discovering, we tried to kind of diagnose it for a while and didn't have much luck, because again, it's a weird condition.
Yeah.
Because it was only going up a reasonable hill, like on flats, no issues. I ended up at one point putting a manual boost controller on the car, and that made the problem go away.
Mm-hmm.
So once I knew that, I talked to Harvey, the tuner that I was working with, and so but from that, basically what his assessment was is that it was something to do with the partial throttle boost mapping. Like as the boost was building up, like once you increase the load, the boost ramps up faster. And so it was maybe getting into a cell that was only hit under, a steep incline. And that was what was causing the issue. Now, at the time, this hill was on my drive home. It was this crazy hill, in Lafayette that I had to drive home every day to get home from work. So I hit it pretty often, but that was one of the only places that it would happen. So that'd be the other thing. Just wonder if boost control might be part of it. Maybe that's what the tuner tinkered with, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Lots more questions and answers there, but hopefully that got him on the right path.
Yeah, it's a start. All right. Let's read the next one. Go for it.
All right, this one's from Robbie Monk, who says he's seen this problem on the internet before with a handful of cars with no good solutions. Well, hopefully we can fix that for you. You got a 2014 WRX with a built motor and a flex tune. Can't go full throttle, but when I try, there's stumbling, hesitation, no power, no acceleration, no fun.
Right.
No whiz bang.
Right.
And a loud popping in the exhaust. But driving under light throttle, none of these symptoms, and no codes.
And no codes. Okay.
Whoa.
No codes is an interesting part.
Yeah.
And with him calling that out, that means that he's looked for it. So that's
good.
That's interesting. All right.
Man.
Now this is kind of related to the last question, but it's different. The difference being that now the problem is at wide open throttle, not a partial throttle.
Mm-hmm. That is. I was kind of hoping there'd be some check engine lights on this one because I was thinking maybe like you're blowing out spark or something of that nature.
Yep.
Under heavy throttle because maybe, or other side of that, not enough injector.
And this seems like a pretty pronounced issue.
Yeah.
What it makes me wonder is if whoever who tuned the car, because he says it's got a flex fuel tune on it. I wonder if the person who tuned the car turned off maybe too aggressively all of the check engine lights.
Yeah.
Because it seems like this could be something. It seems like there should be codes here. They should be giving us ideas of what might be going wrong. So that's kind of what I would wonder. So it might be worth, like, as a starting point, reaching out to the tuner to see if, hey, did you turn off like all of the possible check engine lights or like something like that? Yeah. But so based on the difference here being it's a wide open throttle, would you diagnose this similarly to the previous example, or would you approach this in a different way?
I'd probably still get in and look at things, like pull a spark plug.
Oh yeah, sure.
I'd probably get in there when I was doing that, coil pack's right there.
Yeah.
As we know.
Yep.
That little clip just off a little bit.
For sure. Make sure that all the coils are clipped. Like look at the spark plug, see if there's any fouling, if the ground strap is stretched, any issues that you see. Like do you see do the spark plugs look like the car's running lean, like it's running rich? Any kind of indicators spark plugs, sometimes they can tell you a lot.
Right, there's a whole story there, if they don't look like chocolate milk, well, what's going on? If they're white, they're just way too lean. But if they're wet, I smell like, you pull it out and you smell fuel. It's like, well, hey, maybe I'm blowing out spark.
Right.
So it's kind of a good place to go.
The other thing is the popping at wide open throttle. On my 335, I had a problem similar to this where it would break up under wide open throttle. And it was, now in this case, it was throwing a misfire code on I think 2 cylinders. But it was wide open throttle, the car would break up, it would kind of stutter, throw the check engine light. If I didn't go to wide open throttle, I was just off the bottom of the pedal throw, it didn't happen. And in that car specifically, the coil packs were known to potentially go bad. So I replaced the coil packs, replaced the spark plugs at the time, problem went away entirely.
There you go.
So the coil pack connectors, checking the coil packs. I would love to know if there was a check engine light.
Yeah.
Especially like a misfire, because some misfires, they can tell you a specific cylinder or it can tell you random misfires. But if it's telling you like, hey, you're getting a cylinder 2 misfire, like that's where, that would be where I would start looking at the coil pack clips, the coil pack itself. Move the coil pack, see if the misfire follows the coil pack.
Yeah.
Because that would indicate a bad coil pack. And actually, saying that, I just thought of another similar instance we were through. Years ago with the Pikes Peak car, we had an issue where running at high planes, wide open throttle, you could hear it on the back straight, and it was just breaking up, and it was this popping, exactly like this. I think in that circumstance, This is years ago, but I don't think it was throwing a check engine light either. We tried to diagnose it, couldn't figure it out. It like came on halfway through the track day. This is just a practice day at the track. We brought it back, couldn't figure it out. Actually had Jared InBoost Performance go over everything. And what we had actually done is we had fried the wiring for the fuel pump. And so the fuel pump was basically starting to fail because the wiring it's like we'd overloaded it. That's when we realized that the fuel pump was not direct wired to the battery. So we were running it through the factory controller with the factory wires, and we had the fuel pump in that it's a fuel cell, but it's a Bosch 44 fuel pump. So it doesn't have doesn't have a huge flow rate. I think it's still just, at least at that time, it was a 255 liter per hour pump, but it's huge. It's a giant pump, pretty common pump that's used in motorsports applications, but it's drawing a lot of current, and we had nuked it. We replaced the pump, replaced the fuel filter, and that solved the problem. And direct wired it, so it was now getting battery voltage. So that would be the other thing, is check your wiring, maybe even check fuel pressure. See if you're getting proper fuel pressure, because if the car's leaning out because the fuel pump's on its way out, the fuel pump is not getting enough voltage to deliver its maximum flow rate. Maybe you're just running. That's why you're running out of, or having the issue with the wide open throttle up top.
Yeah, just run out of puff up the end. Top end of the revs.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to the next one. This one is from W. Skinner. Had a shop swap in a 2004-ish 46,000 mile JDM version 7 version 8 EJ205 with single AVCS into a 98 Legacy. And he's constantly had detonation problems since day one after the swap. Discovered that the tech installed the wrong length plugs, replaced the plugs to the proper spec, and that considerably helped the problem, but he's still getting knocked under heavy throttle, high boost, warm ambient temp conditions. So the engine and the ECU are all OEM, so that I'm assuming that means he's running the JDM ECU.
Okay.
And contrary to his expectations, he put an off-the-shelf SPT octane booster in, and that reduced the issue. For the record, I always buy whatever commonly available premium is at hand, and the tank needs filling. Any ideas?
Wow.
All right. What's your first thought here?
Well, detonation, I mean, if you've got pinging issues, like that car in Japan has access to a lot higher octane fuels than we have here.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of thinking, for testing purposes, I'd get me a jug of some race gas.
Yeah.
And I'd start there. Because, I mean, like, that SDP octane booster, that's really just like fuel injector cleaner. I mean... It's
going to do something, but it's not going to take you from, like, 91 octane to 100 octane. Maybe it takes you to 91.5, 92 octane, maybe. But it's going to be a little bit of an increase.
Yeah, so, minor increase there. So I'd say that would be a good place to start. Like, get some good, like, expensive gas in it and see if that fixes the issue.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's with these JDM swaps, a lot of times the cars are running a little bit more compression with JDM engines, and especially if it's a JDM ECU and a JDM engine, and they have the higher octane rated fuels over there. Like, they have, I think, 100 octane at the pump equivalent, and we don't have that here. And so if you're putting in that lower octane fuel and the ECU it doesn't know to compensate, then you're gonna have issues like this. And I mean, that's kind of the direction I would lean, knowing that SPT octane booster did seem to make a difference. Like, if that's the case, like if you put in, like, say 5 gallons of 100 octane with a half tank of 91, and the problem goes away almost entirely, then it seems like that's probably a compression related issue and what you're having here is detonation, and the ECU just having to pull time to save the engine.
Yeah. And if that was the case, you might take it back to the shop that swapped it and maybe get like a thicker head gasket or something, unless you want to keep buying race gas for it.
Possibly, yeah.
Just a straight mechanical fix on that.
Yeah, and the JDM ECUs, generally speaking, are a little bit more difficult to tune. There is a site, I think it's called Project Lambda, where some of these JDM ECUs, they have gotten into them, so you can do a reflash like an Ecutech. It's like an Ecutech reflash. But that might be something, if you can have a tuner that would be able to work with the ECU and maybe take a little bit of the timing out. If you know that it's basically a detonation issue due to low octane, maybe try and back the timing off and keep the engine a little bit happier. Maybe lose a little bit of power, but definitely going to make it more reliable for the long run.
Yeah, because I bet that thing runs, like when it's running good, I bet it runs really good with that Legacy chassis and that JDM engine.
Yeah, definitely. There again, like with the JDM ECU, I wonder, they probably would not have the same fault codes because I don't think they have the OBD2 codes that we do have.
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
I wonder if there's any way you could try and pull it for codes or see if they gives you any error messages, give you any other sign of anything else that might be going on.
Yeah, you probably need OEM Subaru hardware for that though, right? I don't know if like a
JDM Subaru hardware.
Yeah, so like really good stuff.
That's gonna be a challenge. All right, what's the next one, DP?
Our next one is from Dylan Remus.
This is P0420. He's a local guy. Reached out to us through Instagram.
He did, and hopefully we can get him on the right path here.
All right, what's the issue here?
He's got the mysterious Evap leak with a P0457 code, large Evap leak. Had it for months. He's tried everything he could think of. Things he's tried. Rear vent valve.
Yeah.
Good start. The one by the charcoal canister that never gets rusty all the time.
Right.
Purge control solenoid by the alternator. Yet another good one to get. Checked all the hoses in the rear, like near that rear canister for a blockage.
Yeah.
Sprayed everything with air, kind of poofed it to make sure it was all clear of debris.
Mm-hmm.
Only thing he didn't check were the two on the backside of the fuel filler tube itself. He even went as far as to pull the charcoal canister and check it for damage. Didn't find anything. Everybody was plugged in good, secure, no weird things there.
Yeah.
Didn't mention this is on a Forester, so shout out for the Forester brethren like myself. Keeping it boxy, keeping it real.
Yeah. Now he sent some pictures in.
It did.
And there was maybe not a lot to go on, but maybe something to go on with the pictures.
There was, if we looked at the one, there was one with the cold side of the turbo.
Yep.
Right by the PCV tree.
That looks, yeah, we'll pull it up for you, but describe what we saw.
There was a large amount of, for lack of a better term, schmutz.
A lot of schmutz.
Lots of schmutz on the cold side of the turbo there.
But it looked like it was in like a specific area.
Yeah, like someone took a schmutz shooter.
Or something was leaking or spraying and like an oil vapor making it tacky, grabbing all of the dirt and just holding it there.
Yeah.
So that tells me that something's going on. And Evap leak, PCV leak, both of them are going to be tied into the vacuum that's in the turbo inlet. Yeah. That's why the purge solenoid basically connects through a regulator, diaphragm to the intake manifold and the turbo inlet. So it's using that vacuum to kind of scavenge those fuel vapors from the tank.
Yeah.
So if there's a PCV leak, maybe there's less of a leak or less vacuum than there should be in the turbo inlet. Maybe that's related.
It could be. One of the things that just being a parts guy for a lot of years, many moons ago when I was young and handsome, I worked at Napa. And around mission time, I'd sell a lot of gas caps.
Yep.
A lot of gas caps. And for $10, you could fix a large Evap leak and save yourself the trouble.
Yeah, that. I mean, if the gas cap seals the tank, if it's not sealing properly, you're going to have a large leak back there. So, I mean, that's an inexpensive place to start. If you've been through emissions, they typically test, at least here in Colorado, they test the fuel cap. So if you have a bad fuel cap, you would probably know if you've been through that test. I mean, especially if it's a 04 Forester. So it's getting up there in years. Maybe it's time to give that fuel cap a birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday, Forester. Here's a fuel cap,
Yeah. The other thing, so Dylan in the shop had mentioned, because we were kind of talking about these questions before we recorded, he had the same code in his STI. And what he had discovered is, so that solenoid's on the intake manifold, the purge solenoid. Those vacuum lines, there's the vacuum lines on the intake manifold and whatnot, but they end up running back towards the firewall, and they go all the way back through the car, through the firewall, to the fuel tank. Mm-hmm. He discovered that his vacuum line terminated just short of the firewall.
Oh.
Like it had snapped off or something. Or somebody had been in there and forgot to reconnect it. And sure enough, he reconnected those vacuum lines, and that solved the problem.
Dang.
So it would definitely be worth maybe just tracing the vacuum lines back to make sure that there's no other break in that vacuum line from the solenoid in the engine back to the fuel tank in the back.
Yeah.
Because that would certainly cause a similar issue.
Absolutely. That'd be a tough one to do. It wouldn't be real fun, but you could do it on the ground if you had to.
Yeah.
Get under there but if you got access to a hoist, maybe that would be a nice way
Well,
to do it.
the other thing that actually I just thought of is smoke test machines, evaporative smoke tester.
Yeah.
Well, they actually weren't designed originally to test engines for PCV leaks. They were actually designed to test the fuel system for evap leaks.
Oh.
So if you have access to a smoke test machine, that might be something to try and utilize. Basically, put in some of that smoke under light pressure to see if all of a sudden you spot the leak underneath the middle of the car, in the engine bay, whatever.
Yeah.
And
like
maybe that's the source of the vacuum leak.
Maybe we can make that trending as hashtag smoke the tank.
Maybe. Or not.
Maybe not.
Maybe.
But maybe.
Leave us in the
tell
us in the comments below if you think that smoke the tank is going to be trending.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the end of the first episode of Hey, What's Your Problem? And again, just if you listen to this point, if you like what we're doing with this, if you want us to keep going, we need your questions because this is all about us answering your questions. So leave them in the comments below. Leave them in a ticket on our website, flatironstuning.com, or just send us an email through the contact us link on the website, and we'll compile more questions. When we've got more good ones, we'll come back and we'll do another episode of Hey, What's Your Problem? So,
heck yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully this was helpful. Like I said, we kind of do this every day, but we sure do enjoy doing it. So, yeah. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks for your support as always. And until next time, stay tuned with Flatirons Tuning.